If you've clicked on this video, there is a very high chance that, like me, you are a slow reader. Not necessarily because it takes you a lot of time to read a single page, but because you struggle with finding the motivation to pick up the book and actually read it. I have always been a slow reader in that sense. I'm an avid reader. I read very often and I've read my entire life, but I go through massive reading slumps and I struggle to find the concentration or the motivation to pick up a book again and continue reading. Sometimes I leave them halfway and I start another one, and therefore it takes me ages to finish a single book. That is what I mean by slow reader. And one of the things that triggers me the most to abandon a book and move on to another one before I finished it is when a book is incredibly long. It sounds really silly, but when books are under 300 pages, I tend to consider them short books, and therefore I can keep my attention on them longer. Whereas anything over 300 pages, I consider to be like a proper book. So I've read a few books lately that I have flown through and they haven't taken me months to finish. So I thought I'd share them with you if you are also someone who's looking for a short book to get you out of a reading slump, or if you don't have the ability to commit to anything long. The books I'm about to share you are under 300 pages. They're quite simple to read. The stories aren't difficult to follow, and I was able to read them in just a few days. So hopefully all of you busy people out there who don't find the time to read or struggle to find the motivation to pick up a book when you actually have time, I hope that these help you. Some of them are weird and intense because I do like me a weird book, and some do carry certain topics that might be triggering for some people. I'll try to insert trigger warnings if I think that there is a topic that might upset some people if they didn't know it was about that going in. But overall, these are books that I thoroughly enjoyed and that I'm not only recommending because I find them suitable for slow readers. I do actually enjoy the stories being told. So anyway, let's get into it. I'm going to start with the one that has become one of my favorites this year, and that is The Blanket Cats. This is by Kiyoshi Shigematsu. I purely picked it up because it had a cat in a blanket and I thought it was adorable. I also chose this book because it is exactly 300 pages, at least the edition that I have. It's a collection of stories centered around this shop that rents out cats for a couple of days. So you can rent a cat for a couple of days, take it home with you, and the only thing the owner tells you is you have to keep them with their blanket, which is what makes them feel at home, and feed them whatever food he gives you. Like you're not allowed to feed them anything else. And this is a collection of stories around the people who are renting these cats. I went into this book thinking it was something cute. Japanese books tend to very often be centered around cats or cafes or sometimes bookstores. Very often there will be cats in the stories, and that's something that I really like. But I went into this book thinking it was going to be like a fun, adorable kind of story with a little bit of emotion in there because Japanese literature tends to be quite emotional. Right from the start, the first story hits you right in the face. There are quite a few trigger warnings for this book that I'm going to list here. Particularly the first story hit a little bit close to home. But yeah, from thinking I was going into a cutesy book, this had me in tears by the end. I cried in several of the stories. I tabbed it, which I never do. I very rarely tab books like this. This one I needed to, because there were quite a few passages that I needed to like go back to and just remember and reread again. And I have reread them because I really enjoyed this. There's 7 stories in here and they're each around 40 pages long, so you can read like one of them one day and then move on to the next. I read, I think, 1 story each day when I was reading this book. Maybe there was a day that I read 2 of the stories, but mostly read like 1 a day, and the book lasted me a little under a week. And it's also a good book to read alongside something else because the stories are all independent. The only thing they have in common is that they're renting cats from the same place, but the stories themselves work on their own. So you can easily read this while you're reading something else and kind of alternate between the two. But yeah, absolutely recommend it if you're up for it. It had me in tears for several of the stories, but this is definitely one of the best books that I've read all year. Next, we're moving into something a little weird, which is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I read this last summer and it was a really quick read because it was so weird. This is around 230, 240 pages, depending on the edition that you have. I read it on Kindle, so I flew through it. So we get the point of view of two women who are married to each other. And one of them is a scientist that is sent down on a mission in a submarine, and the other one is her wife who is waiting for her back at home. As well as having a dual point of view, it also has two timelines. One of them is the present, and the other one is the mission, the last mission that the scientist went on. You quickly start to see that something happened underwater and she was gone for a lot longer than she should have, and now that she's back, she's not quite herself. It's very difficult to explain what this book is about because it's one of those books that you just have to read, and the less you know about it, the better, because it's very, very strange. It definitely leaves certain things open to interpretation. I love weird books. I love books that are open to interpretation, like I said, and that you kind of fill in certain gaps yourself, and this is definitely one of those. I need to speed through this because I'm losing light. Next I have The Virgin Suicides, which I have read so many times. This is one of my favorite books of all time. List of trigger warnings right here because this is also quite a sensitive topic. This is very, very well known, so there's a big chance that you may have read it already. 249 pages long, at least in my edition. Again, if you get these on Kindle, you're just gonna fly through them. This is a story about a group of sisters who live in quite a strict household, and they start tasting a little bit of freedom and how it affects them personally. It is a little bit of a darker story, and again, the list of trigger warnings will help you understand whether this is for you or not. I love the way it's written. It's written so beautifully. I love when these kind of tragic stories are told very beautifully because it kind of confuses me as to why I'm enjoying a book so much when it's about such a tragic story. I had the same effect with A Little Life, and I had the same effect with Lolita, which is my favorite book of all time. It's these books where you're reading them and you know that the story is terrible, but at the same time they're so beautifully written that you're loving them and you don't want them to end. So I don't usually reread books very often. I have only done it with this, Lolita, and the Harry Potter series. Those are the books that I've reread multiple times. Anything else, I don't think I've reread more than once, if even once. The fact that I've reread this multiple times also should be a sign that it's good for slow readers, because I don't have time to reread books. I rarely find the motivation to read any book, so rereading something I've already read feels like a contradiction. So when I reread a book, I know that it's because I really liked it, and this one I've reread like 3 or 4 times. Another book I read on my Kindle, but I don't have a cover for it, so I can't show you it, but I'm going to insert one here, is I Who Have Never Known Men. A couple years ago it started popping up on TikTok, and I was like, okay, let's read this, because it's a short story, and it was so weird. I loved it. I believe the physical book has around 180 pages or something like that, so it's quite short, but basically the story is about a group of women who live in a sort of bunker. They're all in a cage. We don't know why they're in there, but there's a group of men that are kind of watching them. They feed them and that's it, but they never talk to them. So it's just a group of women who are in a cage together, one of which, who is our main character, has been there since she was very, very young. So she hasn't really known anything else apart from the cage, but the other women do remember a time before the cage, which is a world much like ours. The thing is, we don't know why they're there, who put them there, if there is a purpose to them being there. We don't know anything, and the story kind of progresses from there. It is very strange, but again, beautifully written. It has some really beautiful insights. It's a personal story about trying to find answers, and it was really impactful. At first, when I went into it, knowing more or less what I just told you, I thought it was going to be much more uncomfortable to read, but it's actually much more forgiving than I thought. It's very Margaret Atwood coded, but it's not exactly the same approach that she does. So for 180 pages, I really do think it's worth giving it a go, because it's one of those that you will read in a couple of days. And I don't know, it was really impactful on me. It left me kind of thinking for quite a few days after I finished it, and I haven't read anything like it since. So definitely understand the hype around it, and it's a good one to go for if you're looking for something quick and easy to read. And lastly, I'm gonna go with 2 books that are much more lighthearted than the ones that I've been talking about until now. Like I said, I like myself a good intense weird book, so drop any recommendations that you have down below because I would love to read them. But for the last choice that I've made. It's something a lot more easy and forgiving to read, which is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I actually have the second part here as well. This one's kind of cheating because it is over 300 pages, at least the edition that I have. This one is just around 300 pages, but these two, even if they have 300 pages, these are so easy to read, so quick. Like, look at the margins in this. I have the physical one, and look at the margins on this. This is so easy to read. It's very, very quick. The story is a cozy fantasy of a retired barbarian who wants to open her own coffee shop. If you're someone who likes Dungeons and Dragons or kind of fantasy worlds, this is absolutely Dungeons and Dragons fan service. These are cozy fantasies, so nothing is really happening, and at the same time, the stories are very entertaining. They're very mundane problems. They're not serious at all. There is a little bit of mystery in both of them, but not enough to require an effort from your end to follow. These are just very, very simple, easy to read. I recommend these if you are in a reading slump or if you are traveling. I read these when I read this one on a plane, and I read almost the whole thing in the 2-hour flight that I had because I was hooked, and it was actually very, very easy to read. So even though they're technically over 300 pages, these won't take you very long to read, and they're quite fun and, you know, entertaining. They're not as serious and weird as the other ones that we saw. These might be a bit more up your street if you are feeling maybe a little gloomy, maybe a little sad, and you want something more lighthearted. These are definitely it. There's also a little bit of romance in them, which is always nice. Very cute PG romance. There's no smudge, there's nothing like that. This is just like cute romance. These two, absolutely recommend. The sun is setting and I'm losing all the light that I was using to film. I'm gonna wrap this video up here. Drop any recommendations you have for books for slow readers, maybe short books or books that are very easy to read, books that got you out of a reading slump, anything like that. Let's start sharing them down below so we can all kind of start adding them to our TBRs. And yeah, let's gather this community of slow readers, because it is overwhelming to go on Book Talk or BookTube and see people doing monthly wrap-ups where they've read like 15 books or 20 books, and maybe you struggled to finish just one, or maybe you didn't even finish any of them. The last 3 months I haven't finished a single book, but at the beginning of the year I read like 10 of them. So, you know, it's a balance. Being a slow reader is difficult in the age of TikTok and BookTube and all that stuff. It's a little easy to feel crappy about yourself because you don't read enough, but screw that. You read at your own pace, and that is just fine. And finish the books you need to finish, and just do you. As long as you're enjoying the book, it doesn't matter if you read quickly or slowly. Whether you read 30 books every month or you read three books in a year, you know, the reading experience is equally valid. The most important thing is that we're all enjoying the books that we're reading. So with that, I'm going to sign off because I am completely out of light now, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!